Hello YouTube and welcome back to the nation of free to play. I'm Mr. Mondstadt and today the Spiral Abyss resets once again, which means it is time for another F2P Abyss guide. I will talk about the enemies, the best teams to counter their mechanics and give you my tips and tricks to help you in getting 36 stars. Let's go! Alright, first let's have a look at the enemy lineup for floor 12. In the first chamber we face these abyss chickens called Fisher of Hidden Depths. One has a bit over 500,000 HP and there will be a total of 15 of them over 5 waves. So some AoE is useful here, otherwise you have to deal way more damage. On the other side we face one of our favorite bosses, the Frostnight Herra. We've had this one in Abyss before, and while it allows for some creativity due to its element absorption mechanic, it can be very annoying if you don't have lunar damage, but I will get to that later. In 12-2 we start the first side with 2 Fontaine Crabs, followed by the Emperor of Fire and Iron. This one is also in the current Genshin Onslaught, but the Abyss version should be way less tanky and significantly easier to deal with. In the second half, however, we have to defeat not 1, not 2, but 4 Wild Hunt enemies. These Wilderness Hunter will spawn in 2 waves and have 2 million HP each, but due to the Wild Hunt HP mechanic, this can turn out to be way more in total. Ascending Gleam is strongly recommended. Lastly, 12-3 starts with the dog from the current Stygian Onslaught, the Whisperer of Nightmares. If you've tried to beat Fearless, this thing will have left a strong impression on you. Luckily the Abyss version is not quite as bad, but overall this thing is still lunar shill, so yeah. And in the final chamber we have some geo shill as well, the Legatus Golem. Overall a very simple boss, but the geo shield is the main challenge. What are the blessings? Lunar charge damage is increased by 75% on the first side and lunar-crystallize damage is increased by 75% on the second side. Alright, full Nod-Krai lunar shill this time, great. Basically this Abyss is saying, you better pull for some Nod-Krai 5 stars by now or you're gonna have a terrible time. Well, thanks Hoyo. Generally I can already tell that I do not like this Abyss lineup and that this is gonna be a difficult one for many players. However, let's try our best anyways. Who should you play? If you have Nod-Krai 5 stars, use them. The first side is gonna be pretty straightforward with Ineffa or Flints. Also, the AoE in 12-1 and Pyro Shield in 12-2 seem like they were designed with Neviette in mind, so ideally you run him with Ineffa for the easiest time. If you don't have Lunar Charge but Nefra's best team, she should be able to deal with this one as well. Also, if you only have Columbina available, it should be possible to clear the first side with some strong Electro units as well. Veressa, Fischl or even Auron could be good options. Sucrose is also a useful support here. Columbina will turn Electro into Lunar Charge, which will be buffed by 75% from the blessings. If you don't have any lunar damage available, this is going to be very difficult though. While the first chamber might still be alright with most damage dealers, you do need to break the Crab's Pyro Shield, so some form of Hydro is recommended. The dog in 12-3 is the biggest issue though, as it will get a shield and you either have to deal lunar damage to it or defeat its 4 little chicken summons in order to break it. Technically you could also try to brute force the dog without lunar damage, but focusing on the chickens should be faster in this case. For the chickens, a grouper would be very useful. Sucrose works while Kazua is more comfortable. In terms of DPS power, I expect Skirk's best teams to clear this one in time, but you can't run a proper grouper in that case, so there's that. Mavuika's AoE should be good enough, but she will have issues with the second chamber if you don't run Hydra with her. If you thought that was bad though, let's have a look at the second half. The Frostnight Herra also wants lunar damage in order to bypass its mechanics, so while you ideally want to run Ineffa, Flints or even Columbina in the first half, you also want Luna in the second one? That's problematic since most players do not have access to every 5-star from Nod-Krai. With that said, your elite option is Zibai. Whether you run her with Columbina, Inefa, Illua or even Aino does not matter too much, but having the 5-star on banner should already be basically enough for the second half. What if you didn't get the White Horse Adeptus though? Well, when it comes to the Herra, you don't really need lunar damage. You could also infuse it with one element and then use that to your advantage. Mualani Vape is one example, or Arakino or Mavuika Melt is another option. If you're going for that approach, just make sure that you have a strong reaction damage at the core of your team. However, while the Herra is still alright in that sense, the Wild Hunt enemies are simply unfair. If you don't have Ascendant Gleam, you will have to deal way more damage, so try to get at least 2 Nod-Krai units against them. It can be Aino with your Hoda, it should still be easier than trying to brute force it without Nod-Krai units. And to round it all up, 12-3 has some Geo shill. The Golem shield is the biggest problem, so Geo attacks are really useful in breaking it. If you don't have Zibai, Naviak, Solonin or Zhongli are some other good options. Bonus tip, if you own Columbina and can clear the first side without her, you should use her here with a second Nod-Krai unit, for example Aino, and then run a Geo DPS. Even a C6 Noel with very good investment can be good enough to get through this lineup thanks to the lunar-crystallize buff. My Noel is neither C6 nor well invested though, so I can't show that here. With all of that out of the way, let's have a closer look now at every chamber. 12-1-1. This chamber has the most enemies in the Spiral Abyss, but it is also the easiest one in terms of mechanics. These chickens will have a bit over 500k HP each, no special resistances and gain a special shield. This shield is not too tanky though and can be broken with elemental attacks and lunar attacks. Lunar damage is more efficient, but since the chickens on field are connected to each other, they will all lose their shield once you've destroyed one of them. Their HP is not too high by today's standards, so defeating them should not take too long. However, there are 15 of them, so single target damage is not advisable, otherwise the total HP amount that you have to deal goes way up. Instead, use damage dealers with good AoE or add a grouper to your party. Again, Neviette, Arlecchino or Mavuika should be able to defeat these chickens in time in the correct teams. 12-1-2. The Frostnight Herra is waiting for us here, and while I did cover its mechanics in a previous guide already, let's go over it once more. The boss will enter the Gloom Veil state, which will increase its resistance by 120%. In order to get the rest back to normal, you will have to deal 50 instances of damage to it. However, if this damage is lunar damage, one hit counts as 6 hits instead of 1, which is why lunar reaction damage is way more efficient against the Herra. Once you've dealt enough hits, the boss will have 10% resistance again, but it will also infuse the element it took most damage from, causing it to gain permanent application of that element and immunity to it. If most of the damage was either lunar or physical damage though, this will not happen. Once again, if you have lunar damage available, use it. It will make this enemy way easier to defeat. However, what if you can't do that? Well, option 1 would be to deal physical damage in order to avoid the infusion and immunity to one element. This might take a long time though, which is why weapons like LA Hunter or Crescent Pike can be very useful on bow/polearm characters. These weapons deal additional hits of physical damage, which makes it way faster to fill up the hit counter. Once you've reached the 50 hit mark, the boss will behave normally with 10% resistance. Now you should try to defeat it before it enters the Gloom Veil state yet again. The other and most realistic option is to use the infusion mechanic to your advantage. But how does the infusion work? Well, the Herra will look at how much damage it took from which source over the duration of the 50 hits. This means the infusion does not depend on the number of hits, but on the actual damage. So if you deal 49 hits of physical damage, but one big hit of pyro damage that does more than the 49 physical hits combined, the boss will gain a pyro infusion. If you deal 49 pyro hits but one Mualani shark bite does enough damage, it will get a hydro infusion and will be immune to hydro. So you do want to be aware of which element you want to apply to the Herra. In a Mualani team you want permanent pyro application, in a Mabuika Mel team you would want permanent cryo application, and in the Hyperbloom team you would want permanent hydro application. If you get the wrong elemental infusion, it will probably be a reset, and since this is the second half of this abyss, that can be very frustrating over time. Also, if you are not able to defeat the boss in one down phase, you would need to time your elemental application as well. What I mean by that is that if you run Hyperbloom with Lauma, Xingqiu, Aino and Raiden for example, you would have to make sure that your Dendro and Electro app runs out right before the boss enters the Gleamworld state for the second time. Otherwise, it will get a Dendro or Electro infusion and you will not be able to deal any significant damage to it anymore. Honestly, I hope that most of you guys have at least one 5-star from Nod-Krai by now. Columbina is probably the best one for this boss, as all damage will be turned into lunar damage, which allows you to bypass these mechanics. The first half of 12-1 is doable without lunar units as well, so in that case run the Nod-Krai 5-star in the second half. If you need to, you can change your teams after you've cleared 12-1 with full stars and find the best teams for the next chamber. 12-1. The first two crabs are pretty squishy with 500k HP each. The actual challenge here is the Emperor of Fire and Iron. With its Pyro Shield active, its resistance will be increased by 80%, leaving it with 90% against every element and even 140% against Pyro. In order to get the resistance back down, you simply need to break the Pyro Shield. This is a 16U shield, but one hit of Pyro applies 2, so you would only need 8 Hydro hits to break the shield. The next best element is Electro with 16 hits, followed by Geo, Cryo and Anemo with 32 hits. Pyro and Dendro hits won't do anything at all to the shield, so don't bother trying. Once you've dealt with the shield, the boss has only 2.3 million HP, so it should not take you too long to kill it. Again, if you have Neviette, Farina or Inefa, these are some of your lead options. For 4 stars, Xingqiu, Fischl or even Aino can help you in breaking the shield. I'd say that this is probably the easiest chamber in this abyss, so I don't want to spend too much time on the crabs. 12-2. On the other side, it is one of the hardest chambers though, as we have to face 4 Wild Hunt enemies. Each one of those has 2 million HP, but that is if you have to defeat them once. As a reminder, Wild Hunt enemies will not die once their health bar drops to 0. Instead, they will enter the grief-stricken state and will heal back to max HP. Their max HP is indicated by their grey HP bar. Also in this state, they will only take 65% of the damage you're actually dealing unless you are in Ascendant Gleam, in which case they will take 90%. However, that is not the only reason why you really want your party to be in Ascendant Gleam. The main reason is that these Wild Hunt members will directly enter the grief-stricken state if you are. This means that instead of having to defeat them once just for them to heal back up, you can simply deplete their max HP, so their grey HP bar, from the start. In practice, this means that they will have 2 million HP and not more. If your party is not in Ascendant Gleam, their actual HP is closer to 5 to 6 million HP if you have to keep killing them. Take that times 4 and you know what to expect in this chamber. Without Ascendant Gleam, this chamber will have over 20 million HP, which is basically dire in Stygian. That is why I strongly recommend you to bring 2 Nod-Krai characters to this fight. They don't have to be 5 stars, Aino and Yehoda or Illua work as well, and even if they won't deal a lot of damage, they will make this chamber way easier. Of course, if you have 5 stars available, that will make things even better, but either way, Nod-Krai units are your best friend here. 12-3-1. In the last chamber, the dog from Stygian is waiting for us to fight it once more. It has way less HP luckily than in Fearless, but still 5.6 million. In case you are not familiar with its mechanic yet, it will get a shield and summon 4 chickens. Now you can either attack the boss or the chickens to break the shield. The general rule of thumb is this: if you deal a lot of lunar damage, attack the boss. If you don't, attack the chickens. Both ways will achieve the same goal, which is breaking the shield. The boss has more HP than the chickens, but takes increased lunar reaction damage, which explains the strategy. If you go for the 4 small summons, make sure to hit all of them though, and bring units who have good enough AoE. A grouper might also help. Once the shield is broken, the dog will be paralyzed and its res will be decreased to -60%. Also, it will lose a big chunk of HP once the shield is broken. Generally, this boss is pretty annoying overall without lunar characters, but it is so much better than Stygian Onslaught. Still, Hoyo is really trying to sell their Nod-Krai units right now. 12, 3, 2. Last but not least, we have to beat the Legatus Golem. When it comes to shilling Geo units, it always is one of very few contenders. Just as in Imaginary Theater, the Golem is the winner this time. It has 3.3 million HP, but the actual difficulty is its Geo shield. With the shield active, the resistance will be 90% against everything. So even with a lot of rush red, it can be tricky. In order to break the shield, you ideally want Geo or blunt attacks in your team. That means claymores or plunging units have an advantage. Zhongli, Navia, Itto, Xylonen and of course Zibai will break the shield rather quickly. If you don't have any Geo units available, another approach would be to rely on the overload reaction, especially with Chevrus. Her gunshots from her skill and burst, as well as the reaction itself, are pretty effective against Geo shields as well, so maybe that is an alternative for you. After a while, the boss will also summon a musical note. You then want to hit this note 6 times to destroy it. Every time you do so, the shield is weakened by 20%, so don't ignore this. Once the shield is broken, the resistance of the boss will go all the way down to -70%. Unfortunately, only for 10 seconds before the golem will get its shield back. Overall, the second half is tailor-made for lunar-crystallize damage, and if you are able to run either Columbina or Zibai in such a team core, that will probably be your best bet. Alright, and with that, I am done for the day. This abyss is very chill for lunar characters, and if you don't have any of them, this might be one of the hardest floor 12s ever, and I would not be surprised if some F2P accounts struggle here. I happen to have all the featured 5 stars, so in that case it is fine, but I can relate. Also, because this comment keeps popping up on my abyss videos, yes, I do use 5-star characters, and yes, it is still an F2P approach. 4-star clears on this level are only realistic with C6 on all of the units and R5 weapon banner exclusive weapons like Fruitful Hook or Battle Pass options. That is not very relatable for most free-to-play accounts, which is why I would not consider these 4-star clears F2P friendly. Anyway, I hope this video helped you in clearing this spiral abyss. The biggest tip is to simply adjust your team towards a chamber and then change your lineup and come back for the next chamber. If you like this video, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. It really pushes the algorithm and helps me in creating more content like this. Also, if you have any more questions about this abyss, leave a comment down below. I'm always happy to help. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!